welcome back to another episode of Storytime with Sig. I am Sig, of course, and today we are going to be covering three paranormal stories and three of the most haunted places in the United States. The first one being Waverly Hills Sanatorium in Louisville, Kentucky. The second one, we're going to be traveling over to San Diego, California for the Whaley House. And then lastly, we are going to talk about the Pity Girls from St. Augustine Lighthouse place. So stay tuned for those three stories. And of course, as always, if you like these types of stories, whether mythical, paranormal, legendary, missing person, true crime, or just weird, creepy stories to begin with, make sure you hit that like button, hit the subscribe to stay up to date, and of course, hit the bell icon so we actually get notified when we go live. Other than that, sit back and enjoy as we discuss these three paranormal stories. Waverly Hills Sanatorium is said to be one of the most haunted places in the United States, and it's housed in Louisville, Kentucky. It's said to be built between 1924 and 1926, and it was built specifically to help accommodate all the residents that were experiencing tuberculosis back then. And during that time frame in Kentucky, Louisville, Kentucky specifically, it's very humid there, so tuberculosis was able to just thrive like none other. They did house more than 400 tuberculosis patients, and it was considered to be a model facility, and it had the latest treatments and methods. Even though some of the procedures were not very well thought out, clearly, as you can tell soon, but this was also before the development of antibiotics. So TB patients typically had a regimen where they would have fresh air all day with having the windows open or going outside. Regardless of the season, they had fresh air. And the occasional surgery that they would have where the surgeons would remove a rib or two, because it was thought back then that removing a rib would help the patients breathe a little bit better. But that did not really work out as I thought it would, as they had thousands of people actually die due to the surgery alone, because you're removing ribs and you're cutting into somebody constantly throughout the year. So wasn't very well thought out, is the best way to put it. However, thousands and thousands of patients died during the 35 years Waverly Hills was in operations. Waverly Hills is said to be incredibly eerie and just downright scary, as it is ranked as one of the world's creepiest and scariest places to visit. Now, there are tours there you can go on, and it's said that some people are going to experience just pure fright, and some people are just going to be hit with a rage of emotion, of sadness, and just being downright sorrow. And, this is just simply due to all the deaths that took place there. The thing is now that it's actually owned by a different set of owners. Originally, after they closed down and everything, you had teenagers and other people who go in, party, tag the facility, tagging, being graffiti, and that all started to chip away, and windows were busted out due to this. The new owners have actually fixed some of the place up, but they have fixed all the windows and put security cameras to help trespassers out. However, it still doesn't stop people from visiting, going on ghost tours, or even doing paranormal investigations there. So one thing that always kind of gets said with this place is it's not only incredibly eerie, but really the only light you have is the light of the flashlight that you're carrying, or the light of the moon that's barely visible through the trees. So let alone those two lighting situations are already going to make the place really creepy. There's also tons of just material still left around in there, and there's still a very, very musty smell. Now, it's said tons of people have died simply from surgery and from dying from tuberculosis. And this could be anywhere from children to the elderly. It is said that a handful to hundreds of children have died there, and you can hear children laughing and playing. You can hear children giggling. It's also said that you will experience possibly demonic feelings or entities being there if you don't see a spirit or you don't see a apparatus sorts. You are likely to come in contact with one way or another. There's not too many people who go into this place that have said to come out and not have experienced something, whether it's a minor cold spot, goosebumps, or the full on like being attacked. There was one person who actually went and visited, and we're gonna kind of keep the names just removed for really for their safety, and also it yeah, it's just not everybody believes in this stuff. Um, but they said that one person actually went in there and she was actually physically attacked by some entity in there, and she left with three claw marks down her shoulder, which is said to be the sign of the devil or Satan, so evil. And there's been other people who have gone in there and they have had just pure emotional breakdowns from being so sad and feeling the emotions of those who have died in that facility. So if you're one to go in there, you just kind of be cautious because it's not ranked the haunted place in America, one of the haunted places in America, let alone one of the scariest and creepiest places to go in the world. So just kind of be careful, but it is apparently a great place to go do some paranormal investigation or simply just go on a ghost tour that they host every year. And you never know what you're going to find out or how you like it. The Whaley House gets its name from the residents' previous owners, the Whaley family, which was built for them back in 1857. The grand home is known throughout San Diego as having witnessed more history than any other building in the city of San Diego. One of the absolute finest of homes in Southern California, its beauty was accented by the use of mahogany and rosewood throughout, Brussels carpeting, and elegant damask drapes. Still standing to this day, the Whaley House is located in San Diego, California, and is presently maintained by a live-in caretaker under the employ of a group called Save Our Heritage organization, also known as SOHO. The head of the Whaley family, Thomas Whaley, designed the home himself, with construction beginning back in the beginning of 1856. Completed the following year, the Whaley House was the first of its kind in the city of San Diego. Thomas is quoted as saying, "My new house, when completed, will be the most handsome, the most comfortable, and convenient place in town, or at least within 150 miles of here." If only he could have been wrong. While it is true that his home was indeed handsome, the horrors that followed were anything but. Shortly after the birth of the Whaley's son, Thomas Jr., they were met with a tragedy. The poor child had contracted scarlet fever and died just 18 months after his birth. Not soon after, a fire broke out and destroyed part of the home that Thomas had transformed into a general store. Dismayed over their significant losses, the Whaley decided it was time for a change and head out to move to San Francisco. Over the course of the next 10 years, Thomas invested in stocks that proved to be financially beneficial. With his affairs in order, he and his family moved back to San Diego in an attempt to repair what had been ruined by the fire so many years prior. Completion of the house was finalized at the end of 1868, and all was well for the Whaleys, for now anyways. Sadly, any happiness that was to be found proved to be short-lived for them in 1885. One of their 6 children, Violet, took her own life. But we need to go back 3 more years before her suicide to learn what would make her do such a thing. In 1882, Violet and Annie Whaley married George T. Bertolocci and John T. Whaley, respectively. But just 2 weeks into Violet's marriage, she woke up one morning during their extended honeymoon to find out her husband had left her. It turns out George was a con artist who only married Violet in the hopes of securing some of the Whaley's fortune upon their marriage. When this did not come to fruition, he bolted immediately, leaving Violet alone and all by herself. During these times, society tended to shun women who returned home without their husbands, and it was something the 19th century ladies simply just did not do. The divorce took almost a year to finalize, and Violet never really recovered from the shame. At the young age of 22, she shot herself in the chest with a .32 caliber. She left a suicide note that quoted a poem by Thomas Hood. Another Whaley daughter, Corinne, was engaged to be married at the time of Violet's death, but her fiance broke up the marriage due to the scandal that the suicide caused the family. After much tragic events, Thomas built the family a new home not far from the Whaley's house, leaving their original home vacant for nearly 2 decades. It was there that Thomas Whaley would meet his fate, dying in 1888 due to his declining health. In the years to follow, the Whaley house fell into disrepair. It wasn't until 1909 that Thomas Whaley's son, Francis, took on the massive undertaking of restoring the Whaley's homestead. Instead of making it home, Francis took this opportunity to turn the restoration into a tourist attraction, promoting its history while entertaining guests with his guitar. The remaining survivors of the Whaley family, Anne Whaley, Thomas's widow, Corinne, Lillian, Francis, and George, all lived in the original Whaley house until their deaths. The Whaley house is perhaps the most famous of all haunted locations in San Diego, with its stories told in several magazines, movies, and even television shows. Even before the tragedies that befell them, the Whaleys told the local newspaper that they were experiencing poltergeists that they believed was the ghost of James Yankee Jim Robinson, who was hanged on the property for stealing a boat years before the infamous house was even built. Not helping matters is the fact that the Whaley's house was actually built upon an old cemetery. The Whaleys long maintained that they had heard footsteps in the house, with passerbys corroborating the Whaley's claims by reporting apparitions in the home's windows from the streets. During the house's later periods of restoration, workers and visitors came to hear strange noises, unexplained sounds, sights, and even awful smells. The most felt a powerful presence whenever they were actually inside the residence. This is believed to be the lingering ghost of Jim Robertson. He would torment the living by leaving footprints, stomping on the floor, or just making chilling noises throughout the abode. Further adding to the spine-tingling tales is that the young baby Thomas Jr., he is said to have to cry down the Whaley's house hall, giggling in the distance, and if you listen closely, you can even hear the teeny tiny patters of the infant's footsteps. A young woman has been reported on numerous occasions to inhabit the second floor of the house. This ghost is widely believed to be that of the young Violet Whaley, still saddened over her broken shame of her marriage. Her longing to linger on the second floor is attributed to the fact that she has often locked herself away in the room after the marriage fell apart. Sorry, my notes. Cold spots are often frequented throughout the mansion, believed to be Violet's doing as well. The stairwells within the residence have been mentioned by many to be the wandering area for Thomas, Anna, and other poltergeists. Thomas is often seen spotted in his trademark top hat and coat while looking down from the top of the stairs. It's interesting to add that many people have also detected a scent of a French perfume permeating from the house, which is said to be Anna's favorite that she often wore back in the day. Serving to cement the house's haunting are several sightings of physical objects being manipulated on their own, such as the music's room chandelier, which will just randomly swing back and forth when no wind is present and no windows are open. It's said that lights will randomly turn on and off without explanation, and there's frequently the presence of an odd mist that seems to just linger. The events surrounding the Whaley house are indeed sad and heartbreaking. One has to wonder, though, if Thomas, having the home built on top of the cemetery and the execution site, is to blame for all these tragedies that seem to have followed the families and their collective lives. I mean, it can't be denied that any happiness or joy the family had was fleeting at best, Their lives were filled with near constant sorrows and despair. So well known are these tragic lives that ghost hunters and thrill seekers flock to this location in order to attempt a glimpse of just one of these long dead Whaleys. It said that Superintendent of Lighthouse Construction Ezekiel Pitty moved from Cape Elizabeth, Maine, with his family to oversee the construction of St. Augustine Lighthouse. Ezekiel lived on site with his wife Mary and their children Mary, Eliza, Edward, and Carrie. Just as children do, the Pitty children turned the construction site into a giant playground and would often invite the children of other workers into the fun on the playground or on the construction site. In 1873, a railway cart was used to move supplies from the ship docked at the salt run to the building site. This riding cart, however, was often used as a favorite pastime of the Pitty children. They would treat it as a Victorian-era roller coaster, riding the cart to the water and then bringing it back up to the site again. However, only a wooden board actually stopped the cart at the end of it, so the children would ride all the way down, hit the wooden board, and then bring it on back. On July 10th, 1873, though, the three Pitty sisters, Mary, who was 15, Eliza, who was 13, and Carrie, who was 4, brought along an unknown African-American girl who was said to be 10 and whose father worked on the construction site. They were riding it as normal. The board, however, was not there to stop the cart from going to the water. So the girls loaded up into the cart and they're riding it down. And unfortunately, when it got to the end, the cart that was carrying the girls flipped them into the water along with the cart, trapping the girls underneath it. A young African-American worker witnessed this tragic event, rushed to the water, and with all of his strength, he pulled the cart off the girls. But by the time he did all this, 3 girls unfortunately had drowned, but there was only one survivor. It was Carrie Pitty. In the days that followed the incidents, the construction site along with the town was just shut down. And this was so where they could go have a funeral for the girls. And then following the funeral, the Pitty family went back to Maine to lay their daughters to rest. However, it's not said where the resting place of the African American girl is. Some simply just assume it's there in St. Augustine. One story involves a lighthouse keeper who was actually living there in the 1950s who reported hearing footsteps up the stairs. When he went to investigate, no one was there. The head keeper at the time was James Pippin. He served from 1953 to 1955 and was the last keeper to live at the lighthouse. Pippin initially lived in the keeper's house, as all the previous keepers had done, but he moved to the much smaller 1941 Coastal Lookout building, swearing that the big house was haunted and that he could not stay there another night. In 1955, the lighthouse lamp was fully automated, and the United States Coast Guard replaced the lighthouse keeper with a position called the lamp lighter. The local lamp lighter had all the duties of the lighthouse keeper, but did not live on site. As a result, the keeper's house was rented for a time. A local man is said to have rented the property during the 60s. He tells stories of waking up one night with small girls standing over his bed. As he blinked his eyes at them, they would disappear. In the 70s, after standing empty for many years, the keeper's house burned under mysterious circumstances, gutting the home, leaving only the Cohina basement and a few charred timbers. St. Johns County purchased the shell of the building with the intent to just demolish it for safety reasons. However, 16 women in the all-volunteer Junior Service League of St. Augustine actually stepped in, raising $1.2 million over the next 15 years to restore and renovate the keeper's house, the light tower, and the original Fresnel Linn, a feat never before accomplished. The group added to the building to the National Registry of Historic Places with the help of Karen Harvey, a local historian, writer, and longtime lighthouse advocate. During the renovation, both construction workers and the JSL volunteers reported numerous unexplained incidences in the home. The basement was said to be a very active location for ghost encounters, being the only part of the home that was not completely burned. Perhaps the children are said to play there. Today you can feel a spooky presence when you visit. While the children are by no means the only tragedy that occurred in the home, the girls are some of the most active spirits in that location. Physic, Psychics contact staffers frequently, and recently one told them of the young African American girl and that her name was either Ellie or Eleanor. Their search has been done, and in hopes of historical evidence to back this claim up, but it's really just hearsay at this point. There hasn't been full proof to prove that her name was Ellie or Eleanor, but that's what a lot of people who witness any other girls are said to call her now. As playful spirits, the girls enjoy playing hide and seek, sometimes including unsuspecting people. It said that one night, the dark lighthouse tower, a lone staff member was closing up for the night and he heard giggling atop the tower. Thinking he left someone atop of the tower, he returned to the top just to find it was empty. Descending to the bottom, he heard giggling again. This time, it sounded like it was below him. So he descended faster, and when he got to the bottom, again, no one was there. He chalked it up to just the wind, but others say it's the children playing hide and seek. Another evening, it said that a female guest on a dark moon tour was standing on the first step of the metal lighthouse staircase. When she took her first step to climb the tower, she found that her shoelaces were mysteriously tied to the staircase. Whether it was a ghost or a companion she brought along that was simply just playing a trick, no one's really clarified whether or not it was somebody else or the ghost. On another tour, it said that a guide found a group of young women in the basement of the keeper's home. One of the young women rented an EMF detector to measure the electrical activity caused by spirits. The young woman holding the meter asked the girls if they wanted to play hide and seek. The meter spiked. The woman wandered the basement searching for the hiding girls, finally finding meter activities under the spiral staircase leading them to the main floor. Excitedly, she said she found them and asked if they wanted to play again. Like before, the EMF meter spiked. Once again, the young woman searched the basement for the girls, and after several minutes, found electrical energy near the children's play table. About that time, another set of guests came into the basement, and reportedly, she claims that the EMF detector went silent and no more electrical reading. The girls sometimes appear to people in fully formed apparitions. It was said several years ago during a day, like the daytime, a guest was exploring the maritime hammock trails and came up upon a young girl in a Victorian outfit sitting on a bench, reading a book. As she began to ask the girl a question, another group came up from the opposite direction. Distracted by the group, the woman looked away for just a brief moment and turned back to find that the little girl on the bench was gone. In a similar instance, a woman on a ghost tour approached another woman to compliment the girl's behavior on the tour. Confused, the woman said she had no daughter. The other woman then told her that the little girl had been standing by her side most of the evening and just assumed it was her daughter. However, they said that there were no children on this tour and that the little girl she did see was in fact one of the ghosts of the children. So whether or not it's the ghosts or people playing pranks, St. Augustine Lighthouse is said to be incredibly haunted and is rated as one of the most haunted places in the United States. So whether you believe in paranormal activity or not, these three places and these three stories are often said to be some of the most haunting stories, locations, and just overall activities in those cities in all of the U.S. The Waverly Hills Sanatorium is said to be one of the most haunted and creepy places in the world. And often this is also said due to the fact that it housed patients and several other hospitals and sanatoriums like that where they house patients during such a terrible time is often said to be haunted. So if you're a believer and you want to go ghost hunting and try your luck in some of these places, definitely let me know how it goes. If you want to see more about this type of content, you make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, and make sure that bell notification is turned on so you get notified when I post up another video. Other than that, everyone, I hope you enjoyed this type of content, and if you did, make sure you go back and check out some of the other videos I saw. And as you can tell, I attempted to use a green screen today. I don't know if we'll keep using a green screen or if I'll go back to just having my office. We shall see. Oh, English is hard. Other than that, everyone, if you enjoy this type of content, thank you so much. And if you liked me in just general, and you want to see other content I create as well, make sure you head over to places like TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and also Twitch and Facebook Gaming. And also, you can go check out, I think it's over there. You can go check out my gaming channel on YouTube, where we do story time as well, but it's from a video game perspective. Meaning it's the video game's storyline, campaign, story mode, whatever you want to call it. And we're always doing different stories, but one at a time. So, without further ado, thank you so much for stopping by. I do greatly appreciate it. And as always, take care, stay safe, and I'll see you next time for our next story. As always, see you then.